It has been a memorable week in the world of UFC. We're here to talk all about UFC 200, and we're going to say goodbye to one of our own.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
I told them to play It's So Hard to Say Goodbye by Boyz II Men.
I'm glad they didn't. I hate that song.
Anywho, there's a lot to talk about today. Let's,
You think?
hopefully they can give us the extra 2 hours that we requested today.
Give what? Let's just take it.
That's true. It's better to ask for forgiveness than
Brock Lesnar
permission.
does what Brock Lesnar wants to do.
That's right.
J10,
That's
George
right.
Hermoza, and Double G do what they want to do.
We are here on AfterBuzz TV, the After Show Network, and we're here to talk about UFC 200 as it capped off International Fight Week.
Yes.
Obviously, now it's an annual event that they started a few years ago. So International Fight Week, UFC 200, probably the biggest show of all time. And we're going to see how that does in the pay-per-view buy rates, but we're here to talk all about it. As always, I am here with my awesome, amazing, handsome, gorgeous, good-looking
thank
co-host.
you, sir.
Co-host.
You're stepping up, young man.
Co-host. I'm here with
Thank you.
Tate, Gabriel Gonzalez. I am George Hermoza, but before that, why don't you guys tell people where they can follow you on the social media?
Hey guys, you can catch me on Twitter at Double G on TV. Lately, got a lot of UFC 200 content, so be sure to check it out.
And of course, I'm J10, 716, all over the internet. If you haven't figured that out by now, I can't help you.
And I am George Hermoza, G-H-E-R-M-O-Z, G Hermoza, eBay. I said eBay is the first one because I'm such a net consultant. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Again, eBay. I'm selling a lot of cool
Shameless self-promotion.
sports
there.
action. I'm selling Ichiro. My
On the hustle.
Ichiro action figure.
Hey, real quick, too, before we get into it here, big up to Eric Clark, Steven Stud Hill, and our chief cornerman, Joe Boza, are in the chat room, and we'll be monitoring and talk about stuff and go back and forth, hopefully.
Cool.
Thanks for watching, fellas.
Before we talk about UFC 200, I did want to quick, a minute or two, talk about the main event of the night before. Obviously, this is the third night in a 3-night straight. At Thursday, you had the lightweight title up for grabs.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had yesterday, UFC 200. But Friday, we had the women's strawweight title up for grabs for Joanna Young Jacek,
There you go.
Jacek against Claudia Gadelha. I know there were a lot more that happened, but I really want to talk about that fight really quick because it was for the title. So obviously, I think it does deserve the importance that we cover.
It's a part of UFC history.
So I did want to see what you guys think because I was in awe of the champ. What do you guys think?
That was my fight of the weekend, personally. I mean, don't get me wrong, UFC 200, the guys brought it, but those women stole the show. I love just how back and forth it was. We saw just how tough Claudia Gadelha is, and Joanna Jacek, what makes her such a great champion. And that footwork, the hand speed, the conditioning is what paid off down the stretch.
It reminded me a lot of the previous fight, their first one, where this one was much less close than the first one. I watched in reviewing it. I still think that Claudia won the first match. But what I noticed as a pattern was that Claudia seemed to really dominate JJ, again, especially in the clinch against the cage. Joanna actually had better takedown defense in the first match than this one. Claudia was really dominant in the first 2 rounds, and I'd say even the first half of the third. But then Joanna just took off by leaps and bounds, and it was hard to argue. She certainly didn't. No way of arguing that she lost the 4th and 5th round. Third is debatable, but I think she really in the second half of the 3rd round just. The way that she pulled ahead stole that round, and 3-2 easily.
I personally think we're in the middle of seeing somebody great. I know a lot of people thought that about Ronda Rousey. Even going back to boxing, Mike Tyson. I really think Joanna is that good, so accurate. I mean, she can just give a beating to you. And as we clearly saw, somebody who does not lessen her ability in the championship rounds, round 4 and 5. That's when she really started to really show her ability, and it took it to get Gadelha.
No, definitely. She stayed disciplined. What I really like is she kept up that pace. She could have probably coasted toward the end of the 5th, but she was still giving it to Claudia. And
I think she needed that 5th round. She needed to dominate that one to secure the 10-9.
But she could see visibly, she was giving Claudia that look like, I know you don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
So I give her credit for, keeping up the pace. And personally, Joanna Jacek is my favorite champion to watch. And she proved it again on Friday night.
Even all the judges for round 4 scored it 10-8 for Joanna. So
I don't know that I saw a 10-8 in any of those rounds.
Dave Hagen, the judge, scored it for actually 10-8 round 4 and 5.
Okay.
So,
Whatever.
yeah.
Claudia didn't really mount, I guess you could say, significant offense for 5 minutes. So
She
I
was
guess you can
popping
make
her
the
in the
argument.
face, but she didn't drop her at any time, right?
Well, didn't even really phase, didn't snap the head back, nothing like that. You know, there wasn't anything that even made Joanna respect Claudia's power after midway through the third. So I think that's where those scores came from.
And then real quick, congratulations to Andrew Sanchez and Tatiana Suarez, the newest Ultimate Fighter winners. So hopefully we'll see a nice career for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Suarez was gonna, or not Tatiana, Andrew. There was talk of him dropping down to 185 now that he's done with the tournament.
Makes sense. It happens a lot when you have the tournament and you have to consistently weigh in.
Yeah.
You know, a more natural weight as opposed to.
Both of them were super
time
dominant
to-
throughout the entire series. There's two good stars, and I think we'll see a lot of other guys from the series get opportunities over the next few months. Dana was very happy. The ratings weren't that strong, honestly, for this season, but the matches themselves really were above and beyond what we've seen in the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, and then we're gonna get right into UFC 200. Right after that, we're gonna get into some late breaking news that literally happened as we were beginning to record this episode. If you're watching live, thank you for watching. If you're listening to us, iTunes, SoundCloud, or even on YouTube later on, thank you so much for listening to us. But UFC 200. I'm sure Dana White took the biggest dump in the world and just a big sign of relief. Just like a woof, you know, because I'm sure you know how it is. Like you have your stomach churning, you know.
I think maybe he might, maybe that, but I'm thinking a drink or maybe just a nice steak meal afterwards.
I'm sure he just sat there and just like, oh my God, thank God it's over.
He went home, had a few drinks, and he's still asleep right now. I bet you anything.
But just real quick before we get into the fight by fight, and we'll be covering a lot of the fights because it's that stacked.
Yes.
Overall thoughts on the actual show?
The fights themselves, you know what? I think you got everything you could have asked for considering the circumstances. I will say, and I think a lot of journalists pointed this out, it was lacking that special aura that I feel sometimes comes with having those big stars like a McGregor Rousey. But for what you had, for what is the most stacked card in MMA history, I think it delivered as much as it was going to, and no complaints. It was worth the ticket.
I'd go beyond that. It absolutely did deliver. I find it fascinating to see so much of the internet bashing on the show, saying it was a crappy card, the matches sucked, etc. You didn't get Ronda Rousey, you didn't get Conor McGregor, but you got Brock Lesnar. You got an imaginative match in Daniel Cormier versus Anderson Silva, and the storyline behind that, even though there's not a build-up, there is kind of a build-up, right? In the way that Anderson comes in at the last minute. You saw we're talking about 3 different shows, 3 different days. UFC 200 itself. You saw a couple of women's matches. I'm sorry.
2.
Well, I'm looking on the 2, of course, right. You saw a title change hands. You saw a new champion as well. We kind of broke a bottleneck. I think the show delivered on all fronts, and I know that some of the matches were not slobber knocker back and forth classics, but I don't think that you can blame the fighters for that. And I'm speaking specifically of Lesnar Hunt and Cormier Silva. The booing, when we talk about that, the booing of the fans, screw them. There's if you're booing these guys for that kind of ground and pound, you probably should try another sport like knitting.
Well, let's get right into the main event now. I mentioned this main event, and before I talk about the history of the main event, and kudos to both women. This is like the 4th or the 5th main event announced. Initially, when UFC 200 was announced, it was initially Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. Then we all know how that ended up turning out with Conor McGregor and retirement and whatnot. And then from there, I went from John Jones to Daniel Cormier. Then we all saw how that played out. For a second, it looked like it was going to be Brock Lesnar versus Mark Hunt. Before they finally decided on Miesha Tate and Amanda Nunes, which, regardless of the circumstances, it is huge for women in sports. UFC 100, you probably would have never thought that UFC 200, and maybe even UFC 150, you would have never thought UFC 200, especially without Ronda Rousey in there.
Yes, especially that.
But, so kudos to Nunes, kudos to Tate, who have been working their asses off for the last however long, many years, going to get that main event, sponsorship money and championship fight, et cetera, et cetera. But, so like I said, kudos to all those women involved. Obviously,
No, truly.
it's been a long time coming.
Well, the problem is that it's not the women; it's the women's title. There is a title event. I mean, they were thrown in as the main event, in like 24 hours or so.
Yeah.
But the match had already been booked. It had already been signed. I think they already weighed in at that point. But it does speak to the UFC respecting their women's championships. You know, they're investing in building it up because they could have easily put in Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar. You know,
True.
two guys that have longer legacies than either of those women in the UFC. But they didn't. This is for the official, real title, undisputed. And I absolutely agree that title matches should be at the very top, regardless of who is there. So yes, kudos to that. And on top of that, now as well, worthy of note, we have a new. I think the PC term is LGBT champion in mixed martial arts in the UFC. You know, that's history unto itself, and it wasn't a fluke match. She had a great performance. She dominated, and you know that speaks volumes to that community.
Yeah, I really want to point out the fact I love that as the MMA community and the UFC respected the fact that it was the women for the undisputed title. I'm not going to argue that Brock Lesnar, as a star, probably a bigger draw than Misha and Amanda. You know, I'm not going to question that.
Absolutely.
He does bring in a lot of big names. But I'm glad the fact that they respected the fact that this is two championship-level fighters. Brock, for his, you know, he does have that mystique about him. I'm not going to take that away. But I like that, you know what, they respected these fighters who, at the top of the game, Lesnar, he wasn't at the top of the mountain when he left, and he's been out a few years. So I'm glad they respected Misha and Amanda, even though you probably could have gotten more views, or, more buys if you put Lesnar's name at the top of that.
I don't think
It's
so.
funny because it doesn't. In my opinion,
disagree.
I thought about it too. It doesn't make a difference because you're already buying the event.
It's
Yeah.
true.
You know, and you're already at the show. So I mean, that's what I'm kind of. It's a number
It's
that
a
we'll never.
question of what do you respect the most.
Yeah, a number that we'll never ever find out or ever know is like I'm kind of curious if anybody was ever like, oh, I'm not going to buy it anymore because Jones and Cormier is off the card. You know, it's not like it was the only fight. And we've seen fights or cards suffer because of maybe somebody in the main event not. You know, but obviously this is from top to bottom. Like
A strong percentage of shows or pay-per-views are bought very last minute. They're not ordered ahead of time. So I can see that there may have been some drop off when Jones fell off the card. But that said, you're not going to not buy the card because Brock Lesnar is third from the top as opposed to first from the top, or the co-main versus the opener. If he's the opening match on the pay-per-view, you're buying the pay-per-view. But if he's on Fox, then maybe you won't buy the pay-per-view. But that's a completely different. Exactly, it's a completely different channel.
And
altogether.
even for the people that bought tickets, let's say for your sake, let's say just for argument's sake, people only want to see Cain Velasquez try for Brown. That's the fight they want to see the most. You're not going to spend $500 just to walk out after the first fight either.
Oh yeah,
Right.
You know,
Agreed.
you want to at
Definitely.
least for me. For me, that's something that I want to at least see how my money gets spent. I'm going to stay as long as I can.
Sure.
That's a lot of money that I can never really get back.
I'm with you. I'm there, for the first prelim fight that, it's just me and the popcorn guy in the arena. That's how I am when I go to see those things live. So respect to that.
Yeah. Steven Studhill is mentioned here. He chips in and says, women kick arse. So I'm guessing you're on the other side of the pond, my friend. Also, what did you guys think of the yellow mat? Let's talk about some of the other things that were distinctive of UFC 200, huh? Yellow mat, gold gloves.
No, it was supposed
Bruce
to be gold.
Buffer.
It was supposed to be gold,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Yes,
but
and
I mean,
it turned
obviously,
out
it looked
that
like
was
piss yellow. No, it did. It did look like piss yellow.
It was positive test yellow, mustard yellow, yes.
Yeah, mustard yellow. I would have liked it more if it was metallic gold. I think that would have been sick, but I understood, you're trying to say it's gold. That's like when you buy a gold crayon and it's goldenrod. Remember that back in school? That's what it looked like, and I was like,
That
I almost would have rather had it white after seeing
absolutely.
that yellow. But
I don't know how you don't get a sample of that and see how it looks long before you're up against the wall where you have to go with it. I mean, I would think that they probably did a prototype beforehand, and somebody said, "Yeah, this is good. Let's go with this. This is fine."
I mean, credit to try to make it different for such a seminal event, but just one of those experiments that didn't play out well when you watch it on TV.
Big time.
Of course, as you just mentioned, Amanda Nunes, the first, LGBT champion. The keyword openly gay Because I don't want Mark Coleman to come out. Oh, by the way, I like guys back in the day, so I'm the first ever, But yeah,
And you
can
know
imagine
what?
happening.
That could. I wouldn't be
We've
surprised.
always heard about some athletes be like, oh, by the way, I was gay, back in the '80s, but never really said anything because that was a different time then.
There have been so many champions, you honestly never know.
You never know. But yes, let's talk about that main event. At the end of the day, it was Amanda Nunes versus Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate coming in as champion, obviously beating Holly Holm back in March.
Yeah.
Are you surprised by this result? I know I was a little surprised. I did not expect Nunes to win, even though if anybody's been following me on Twitter and Instagram, DraftKings, baby. I don't know why we're not going to do a promo for that. Nobody gave me a promo, but it would be the perfect time to do a promo because I won like over $150 on DraftKings yesterday.
Dude, kick a freestyle.
Well, let me hear what you guys think about this fight first.
I was shocked because you know what, Miesha Tate, she's been on quite a run since she lost that second time to Rousey, and she's gone through top 10 opponents ever since that loss. And then obviously we saw her tenacity to take out Holly Holm. So to lose in the first round like that, it was very shocking. Take into account Amanda, she fought Valentina Shevchenko. She didn't look the most impressive in that fight either going into this one. So to see Amanda just come out, really sting Miesha from the opening bell, it was shocking to just see it that quick, considering how tough we've come to know Miesha is.
A lot of this, a lot of the sport itself in general is who shows up on that day. And by the same token, Holly Holm, in her match before Ronda, she didn't look very good either. She went to a unanimous decision against
Raquel Pennington.
Yeah, I think it was Rocky.
There was somebody after that too.
She fought someone who was unranked.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, in watching this one, the way that Amanda moved, like, she really was flawless. I do think, though, it seemed to me from watching that I feel like a strike stuck Miesha. I think probably broke her nose, and I think probably changed the game. I think there was one strike in there that probably changed the game because she was not. She was backpedaling for most of the round. After that happened, there was a knee there was a knee to the face as Miesha was on the ground getting up, and I don't think that it hit, but perhaps I didn't get to watch the post-fight press conference to hear any confirmation about that. But there was definitely a strike where Miesha just turned off and. For the rest of the round, she was on the defensive. I think you see the match go differently if you run it back, and maybe Nunes still takes her into deep water. Maybe we'll see a rematch. I mean, what's fascinating here is that this was the number 4 contender. Nobody else was really around, right? Holly Holm, I think, was I don't remember why she wasn't. Build for the rematch, but Miesha obviously defending, Ronda gone, so you had to go with number 4, and then that's totally understandable, and I don't think it's an unreasonable thing. But Amanda's name obviously meant absolutely nothing to this title match in terms of marquee value, and I felt a lot of people were crapping on the match itself, that it should have been some combination of the triumvirate of Ronda, Miesha, and Holly. Somehow make it happen. Couldn't happen, so you go with what you got, and look what we got. We got a new star. This shit happens. This is why the sport is so awesome, and that's why it's not unreasonable to go to number 4, for a title match. That's totally deserving.
No, definitely, under the circumstances. Keep in mind, they were never supposed to be the main event. When you think about it, a lot of people were expecting way back last year, it's got to be a rematch between Ronda and Holly. That was the one we thought, the time works fine. Like you already said, we cycled through so many main events, so yeah, technically you didn't need a 2-fight, double name billing on top. Let's say, an Aldo McGregor type situation, 2 top level guys, or at least perceived that way. No disrespect to Amanda. So that was shocking. Also, I thought it was very noticeable. One, I do believe that Miesha did quit about halfway through, about 2 minutes in.
She was broken.
If Amanda had chosen just to follow up with ground and pound, she would have gotten the win in the same amount of time.
I think she could have done any submission, and at some point, she was just mentally and physically done.
Miesha didn't even. I don't think the choke was even under the. Okay, yeah, it was probably undamaged, but I know that arm wasn't even under the chin. I feel it's worthy to note, look at how well that 135 women's division is doing, and Ronda Rousey hasn't even been around. I mean, that title is changing hands. Whoever's next, Holly Holm's still up there, Juliana Pena looked all right tonight. that division is thriving, and I think it's very surprising to see just how much the MMA community is kind of come to terms with the fact that, you know what, if it's not Ronda next, we still got a lot of top girls in there, and that's what's pretty cool about seeing that change of the guard right now.
I mean, it's interesting to note, in a few weeks, Holly Holm will fight Valentina Shevchenko, and who knows? You know, obviously we can see anything can happen. And I asked this question to our panel just a few days ago, you know, when you were not here. By the way, still plugged your Twitter, even though you were not here.
Thank
so
you,
it'd be
sir.
nice to know.
I watched it. You guys did a great job.
I know we did a great job.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The word duh comes to mind.
We've been doing this.
I'm sorry. I thought I should be nice to my coworkers on live internet.
The young buck is getting a little out of pocket here.
But I did want to ask you
It's
this,
all right, old
and I
man.
did want to hear your opinion. Is
knock you the
are you
hell
a
out.
fan?
wish.
Are you a fan of the consistent title changes, or are you more of a fan of the one person dominating the division? Obviously, we've seen with the bantamweight women's division, you know, Holm beat Rousey, Tate beat Holm. Now Nunes beat Tate. Not only in, you know, they beat him, but on their first title defense.
You guys had a great discussion about that, and you know what? I agreed with what you guys said. That disparity is nice. When you got a guy like St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, yeah, it's got that tension. This is one of the best ever booked. Could tonight be the night, right? So you love that. I think, you know, the sport needs superstars. Obviously, if you lose often, you know, the way some of these champions who, you know, they win the title, lose it, maybe get it back, lose it again. Yeah, it's harder to make them more marketable in that way, but I'm okay with it. I think it shows that it's more of a surprise every title fight. You know, it can't always be a dominant champion. That's why there's several divisions, there's several stars. So I'm okay with it. Like I said, this division is thriving, and it doesn't even have its biggest star active right now.
It's not a question about one or the other. What do you prefer?
Yeah.
It's just
I
a matter.
prefer a
It's a matter
dominant
of
champion.
It's a matter of how
But
things play
across
out.
the-
Because
although-
no, because this is. I like to go to this. It's a shoot sport. It's not. It's not. You're not mapping this thing out. I mean, there's certain things you can do. A promoter can do to kind of triangulate as best you can, but in this sport, anything happens. Obviously, the other issue to that is when you have a dominant champion. To a certain amount of time, there's a certain number of matches that you have to get through before he or she catches on with the fans. That was the case, frankly, with Ronda when she was defending her Strikeforce title. There was a lot of buzz, obviously, with the Liz Carmouche thing, and you know by that point the ship had sailed with her fame. But Demetrius Johnson has been facing this thing right now. I think he's just getting over the cusp. Now he's becoming a name that people are really excited about because he's got this shot to beat Anderson Silva, who, by the way, also suffered the same problem. You know, people didn't care about him until they realized how dominant he was. So you've got to get past the hump, unfortunately.
I will say this, though. I personally prefer the dominant champion as long as there's a contender at some point. You know what I mean?
Like
you
a
look-
legit person who it's not just a one-sided blowout the way a lot of DJs are.
Exactly. I mean, you look at, even though DJ's fight got canceled because he got hurt. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, no respect to Wilson Hayes, but like really, like the number 8 guy. I know rankings don't really mean that much, but like, I mean,
Well, yeah,
that's
gotta
how
say-
much of a disparity it is. You know.
the flip
Unfortunately for
side.
him, that division is only like 18 people deep to begin with. Yeah,
Pretty much.
so you know that's no knock on DJ. Wrong timing in his division. You know, maybe if he'd come in 10 years later and they got 100 flyweights, he'd still be kicking ass. But we'd never
Probably.
know. I do gotta say, a dominant champion across like all 10 divisions, really?
No, I mean, it just.
Oh, okay.
If I'm forced to choose, I'd rather have.
Okay. I was gonna say, it's like if you honestly had something like that, wow. I didn't even know if it would still be interesting if
I mean, it
all the
depends.
divisions.
This guy.
It depends. Like I said, I if you ask me,
It's a good question,
I like
Jay.
the days of the GSP. Like GSP is probably one of my favorite fighters of all time.
Mine too.
And so for him to come in and just completely, show his greatness, and same thing with Anderson Silva. So I it's just like we mentioned on a Friday, where like you're watching greatness happen. The same way I'm seeing greatness in the women's strawweight division. I see Joanna, I'm like, wow, like this girl is truly amazing. Like it's gonna mean that much more when she does get beat.
It's
So
true.
it's kind of
It's true.
Is a G thing in the chat room is saying Tate seemed nervous before the fight. Best fight of the week belonged to Joanna and Claudia.
up
Totally
there.
fair point there. Eric Clark wants us to get into the main event with Brock He also says Kane looks great, and Steven Studhill as well. Yeah, Kane was looking good, but the main event itself.
Before we get into that Brock Lesnar fight, I want to know that who does Amanda Nunes fight next?
I think if Holm looks really impressive,
assuming Rousey's back early next year.
I think
so. She's off the
I don't know. I mean,
off the table for the next 6 months.
I mean, you haven't heard anything that she is coming back, so we gotta.
Even Dana White in the post-fight said it's still more likely early next year. So taking her off the table, I think if Holm has a great performance against Shevchenko, put her in. Yeah. It's a fight we haven't seen, especially if Holm looks dominant. Also notable, if Rousey comes back, we know she's getting the title shot. Let's say Holm beats Nunes, that sets up that big rematch we all wanted to see in the first place when Holm beat Rousey. So that's my pick. Obviously, anything can happen.
Juliana Pena, I think, is the next one because after that, after that, in looking at the top 5 here, Juliana is number 5. You are kind of getting bottlenecked to a certain extent. We've got to get past Holm and Shevchenko. So now Amanda is the top dog. You don't do a rematch with Misha right away. Ronda off the table. So that leaves Holm, Zingano, who just lost, and Juliana Pena.
Well, you'd take Pena over Zingano anyway, just off of that night alone.
Right, of course, yeah. Or if Shevchenko wins, beats Holm. The problem is there that probably the only name that is going to catch any cachet to be a challenger is going to be Holly Holm. Everybody else, it's going to be just a title match of 2 women that nobody has recognized. So they've got to start building it up now.
I was just going to say they'd go with Pena just because, the Ultimate Fighter winner.
Yeah, there's a little bit of cachet with that. I mean, that's the best.
But it's not Holly. It's not
pay-per-view right there. No, it's not going to be. It's going to be a co-main. Maybe you can, Nunes, you can possibly build into a larger star because of tapping into the LGBT community, and they are going to support and follow the shit out of her. As well they should. I feel like I saw that a lot with Liz Carmouche and building up to the match against Rousey. And I hope we have a new star with Nunes.
And also, just as a fighter, not even just, her orientation. She's a badass and she showed it off.
Well, that's the great thing about it, too.
That's true.
So there's that.
That's true. I mean, she does have a loss over Kat Zingano, so that kind of does. If Kat Zingano were to be able to come back in maybe 2 or 3 wins in a row, and Nunes is still champion, that's another storyline as we will see that. Just how Bisping got that next title shot. But the co-main event, we have a returning for the first time in almost 5 years, Brock Lesnar against number 8 Mark Hunt. This, for me, the fight that I was looking forward to the most, just being a huge wrestling fan and seeing what Brock can do. I want to know what you guys thought about this fight.
I was shocked that he looks healthy enough to stay in for SummerSlam. What is it, next month?
August 21st?
Yeah. So next for Brock Lesnar is Randy Orton. Obviously not UFC, but let's just get that out of the way. Most shocking to me, he looked like he'd been hitting the weight room still. We knew that was apparent. The big question, has he been sparring? Because we all know he used to cower
3,000 rounds. So he says.
I wouldn't have believed him if he said 30 rounds. But I was impressed that second round he wasn't able to get Hunt down, and he took a few solid shots that I think Brock of 2010, 2011 would have maybe started to wilt. So he ate a few. His striking, he didn't turn into Anderson Silva in 5 years. But you know what? He ate a few shots. He used his size the way we're used to, and he did what he had to. Sat on top of Mark Hunt, just earned those easy points, used those big canned yam hands that he does, and he got a solid victory. I think stylistically, Hunt, he was always going to have to get really deep into Lesnar's reach just to touch him. So stylistically, he did benefit from that. It's not like he was fighting a top guy in that regard stylistically. But good fight for Lesnar. He actually surprised me how well he could take a punch, and I didn't expect that going in.
I guess that's maybe skill-wise one of the only things you can take away from that match is that Lesnar's chin is strong and he is healthier than he was 5 years ago. I didn't care about this match building up to it. Brock Lesnar comes back, whatever, doesn't matter. He's going against Mark Hunt. That's a pretty tough challenge stylistically, but to what end is that? Mark Hunt beats Brock Lesnar. What do you do with Mark Hunt? Nothing. You're still stuck there. So Brock comes back, and fantastic showing there. The thing that I enjoyed most about Brock, to be quite honest, was afterwards. Like seeing him, I didn't care. Of course he was going to take him down. Of course he's going to pound him out. Of course he's going to use his weight.
True.
But you saw him smile. You saw him have fun. You saw him engage. You know, previously Brock was the big silent guerrilla killer, and you had somebody else do the talking for him, you know. Or when he did talk, he just talked like an asshole, which was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that too, right? But now here, we're getting to see Brock Lesnar, the person. He said he had a great time. He was smiling about the whole thing. You know, a little bit of cockiness that was beyond. It was more finesse than just the usual. Nah, shut up. I'm drinking Coors Light and I'm gonna hop on my wife. You know. Like, it's less of a bully and more of engaging with the media and the fans and stuff. So to that end, I'm interested in seeing Brock again. And the way that he was talking, it's a lock that we're going to see him again. It
did seem like he a sign of relief knowing that he can get through this. Obviously, he said, obviously we saw him lose to people, but according to Brock, he didn't lose to those guys. He lost to diverticulitis.
That's what everyone says. I'm not to take. Yeah, he was affected. I'm not going to take that away. But you know, it's like when a fighter says, "I'm a lot better than my record." Of course, you're going to say that. Yeah. What are you going to go out there and say to promote a fight?
It's like when your coach says, "Like, oh, my fighter's the best fighter of all time." Like, oh yeah, no shit.
Yeah,
you know?
but so yeah, I'll give you that credit. I still think you got to see how does he fare when he's up against, let's say, a guy as nimble as a Dos Santos, who, you know, a little bit bigger. You know, I think we got to see how Lesnar matches
pretty
up.
fast and agile.
He was, but
night.
Once again, the size thing as a physical specimen, that's something that just Brock
If he gets his hands on Dos Santos, he's taking him down.
Well, I don't know. I mean, even Cain Velasquez, as strong as he is, you know, manhandled Brock. He had trouble taking Dos Santos down in the first few rounds.
Right. It was a different Brock when he faced Cain.
True, but so we gotta wait and see. Obviously, styles make fights, but for right now, he looked good.
The next fight, and styles make fights. But I do want to ask you this. Now, there's two ways to look at this scenario. Sure. If Brock Lesnar comes back and makes a run for the belt, or is Brock Lesnar going to come back and just be another attraction? Does that make a difference in who his next opponent will be, assuming he doesn't come back?
I think there's going to be contractual issues to that. That's what I wonder is how will he be able put his WWE contract on hold?
Well, I mean, it's besides that because, he fought yesterday.
For a one-time thing, that's hugely different than going for a title run. That's different. You're putting your WWE career on hold. Now, let me ask you, because this is relevant, do you know when his WWE contract is up?
It would be around WrestleMania time because he signed it
It was a one-year extension, right?
I think he signed like a 2-year.
Okay.
Or 3. So 2 or 3.
Okay. But possibly, so next year around WrestleMania is when
it's usually around that March, April time.
Okay, all right.
I think they're going to give him a few guys similar to Hunt, maybe a little different stylistically, but someone who's not necessarily going to make Brock look too bad in one or two fights.
And Stephanie let him fight.
If Lesnar, you know, this is taking into account saying he does figuratively come back to UFC, he'll probably have another 2 of those fights, and then we'll see if he does look legit. Maybe they'll give him someone that puts him on the fast title track.
Because I look at it like this: is if obviously from a WWE standpoint, if he makes a title run, I guarantee you within a week or a month he's going to become the WWE champion because they want that image of one guy having both belts and pretty much all aspects of that
within a week. I doubt it,
or a month, or depending on when they fight. Because obviously we've seen he'll fight and then wrestle the following month.
I don't think that you'll see that. I don't think that either side will allow him or anybody, Punk or not that Punk's going to go back to WWE or Ronda, to flip-flop back and forth. That's completely unrealistic. Dude, it hurts the business too much. No,
a year ago I'd agree with you.
Who benefits the most from that? Brock Lesnar for having 2 belts.
Yeah. True.
But it puts everybody else at risk. And neither of those companies are going to put themselves at risk. So that's not going to happen at all.
So with that said, if he comes back, who does he fight? One guy. Just pick one guy. I would say either Derek Lewis or Junior Dos Santos. Because I think he fought Mark Hunt because they know that Mark Hunt is not going to be main event for the title shot anytime soon. They needed a guy that's a good solid hand, that's under UFC contract, that just we'll just put him with Mark Hunt. As much as I hate saying it, I don't think Dos Santos being at the top of that list anytime soon. You got Stipe, Kane, who knows if Arlovsky will get on another run. And we got Fabricio Verdun, Overeem. Yeah. I don't think that JDS fits in there anytime soon, which is why I think if we were to come back, him and JDS, they were going to fight a few years ago. They're both coaches of Ultimate Fighter. Yeah. Right. So I think, to me, JDS Brock Lesnar would make the most sense for.
The key would be marquee value. Yeah. Who is that? I'd be interested. JDS, I agree. Andrei Arlovsky would be interesting too. That's something that piques people's curiosity.
Or if Fedor ends up coming in.
I was going to say, that could be a wild card. Finally, he was finally on Fight Pass a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to make that dream match, it's closer to being possible.
Is it a dream match anymore, though?
I mean, technically Anderson Cormier, so let's bend the rules for the night. Let's say, they do it.
I didn't get to see Fedor's showing there. I heard it was not great.
It wasn't, but
shouldn't even won.
It's just about putting the name on the ticket. That is still a possibility.
I think it was a dream match before. Yeah. But a lot of people eliminated it from the realm of possibility because of Brock going back to WWE, Fedor retiring. But now it's like, dude, they both just fought within the last month.
That said, who would have thought that Ken Shamrock would draw? He drew well past his fighting time. Kimbo Slice, etc. So there is something. But it's kind of a freak show match, though. I think that Brock would want to challenge himself more so. Especially off of this buzz of, I beat Mark Hunt. Let me get a top 8 guy. Do you think that Fedor is necessarily going to be in the top 10?
I'm sure as long as Brock gets another $2.5 million, I'm sure he'll fight whoever the hell.
I will say that if he's, it depends how serious
another $10,000 for Reebok. Oh yeah, so got $25 million and $10,000.
You know what? If he is serious about testing himself, he'll take Dos Santos. If he's just there for the paycheck, he'll probably take Derek Lewis.
Andrei Arlovsky. I think Arlovsky is much more marquee value than that. Derek Lewis is somebody that you build up, and I don't think you feed him Brock right away.
Yeah, I feel like they're trying to build up Lewis. Obviously, like I mentioned, they don't want to interfere with guys that maybe might be a main event or legitimate title contender, and I don't think Derek Lewis will be. But at least he's been showing himself good enough, as shown. Yeah. I think he fought yesterday, the day before.
Roy Nelson in the tough finale.
Yeah. So
maybe.
I think that
Derek Lewis versus Mark Hunt, for that matter.
Yeah.
Or Travis. Mark Hunt, probably.
Maybe.
That'd be more fun.
But speaking of a dream match, this next fight was a dream match without even knowing, apparently. Because nobody even thought it was going to happen until, 2-3 days ago. Mm-hmm. Daniel Cormier, who was a light heavyweight champion, fighting against Anderson Silva in the light heavyweight division. Obviously, we're not going to get into the whole John Jones. We talked about that 2 days ago, and everybody's probably, I'm sure, way over it by now. Yeah. But enter Anderson Silva, who I think Wednesday was at home chilling, with his kids.
Wasn't he on his way? No,
Thursday,
was on his way.
He said. I think they said Thursday he was on his way.
Because he for the festivities. Big Nog into the Hall of Fame.
And Fan Expo. Or just because he was going to be doing 1 million autographs, hanging out.
He's normal.
I got to say this, respect to Anderson Silva for stepping up. He didn't have to, especially when, Cormier is in shape, ready to fight a beast like John Jones. That said, under the circumstances, they were just there to collect a paycheck. Anderson, he did try to get a bit of flair going, the switch kicks, the jumping knees, but Cormier stifled him. I honestly feel like Cormier even let him off the hook a little bit. It seemed apparent that if he really wanted to pressure Anderson with punches, he probably could have got him out of there. I hate to say that about Silva, but 2 days' notice, he hasn't really trained since the gallbladder surgery. You got what you were going to get. Like I said, props to him. He's a warrior for coming in to save the show. He could have taken a big hit, even by accident, even if Cormier is controlling himself. Those are some big guys. But the fact is, you got, the best you were going to get under the circumstances. It wasn't going to be competitive from Anderson unless he got him out in, the first 5 seconds with something crazy.
No, I think that it was... I predicted it was going to be a ground fight. If Cormier was foolish enough to stay on the feet with Anderson, then I think you would have seen a lot more with Anderson. By the second and the third, the beginning of the second and third round, he started to kind of get his pace. We saw the more aggressive, playful Anderson. But it was pretty obvious. What do you do when you know that you're going to get knocked out by Anderson Silva? Don't get knocked out on the feet. Take him down. He always has trouble with wrestlers. Or I should preface that he seems to be okay with working off of his back. but it also really doesn't seem to work for him necessarily. The first fight with Chael Sonnen, Chael was pounding the hell out of him. Anderson was not winning that match until boop, you slip on the triangle.
Houdini escape.
Yeah,
like I like to call it.
Travis Lutter was taking him down as well. I mean, years before that.
Dan Henderson dominated him in the first round.
Yeah, but that's the thing. When Anderson Silva wants to, he goes, you know what? Boom! I'm done with the match. I'll choke you out. You know, Travis Lutter, Dan Henderson, again, Chael. So it was one of those. It was a scenario where maybe Anderson was looking to figure to be able to put away Daniel whenever he wanted to, and couldn't do that. But then again, that lockdown, having trapping Daniel's leg like that, that's a move where you trap a guy. And I don't know, you kind of buy time or you use it to set up for something else. He never was setting up for something else. He was just kind of chilling there on the ground, which was a strange thing. But you can't say that he was there just for a paycheck. He was saving the show, as you said. He was doing everybody a favor, in my opinion.
I mean, even so, like Cormier even admitted that body shot that Anderson got with it hurt him. It not like it was actually going to be somewhere. Obviously, unfortunately, there was like 30 seconds left in the fight. But I do want to hear your thoughts because I know you're pretty passionate about it. The people booing Daniel Cormier, like, do they even belong? Do they even are worth calling themselves fight fans?
This has been my last show, so I'm going to use my cachet here. Fuck those guys. Forget about it. No, it drove me nuts hearing those boos.
Especially when Brock did the same thing. Brock did the same thing, and they cheered him.
Exactly. Yeah, the same thing. And people were cheering Brock, which I guess I can understand. Cormier, for whatever reason, seems to be a bit more of a heel in the eyes of the public than Brock. And then maybe it's the squeaky clean white guy. He's got a little bit of a Bob Backlund syndrome.
Squeaky clean, Brock Lesnar?
No.
Okay,
Cormier got too squeaky clean for fans to really enjoy getting behind. Whereas Brock, yeah, of course, everyone enjoys being on his team. But it drove me nuts. Of course, like, if you know enough about the sport, then you should have seen that coming. And if you didn't know enough about the sport, okay, that's fine. But it is, Cormier was pounding him out, and I know that when people, casual fans or younger fans, they hear of the legacy of Anderson Silva, they want to see a knockout, they want to see some flashy, spinny shit. You didn't get that, okay. But you don't boo Anderson Silva. You don't boo Daniel Cormier. Miss me with that shit, guys.
I think what it came down to is when you think about it, like, hey, we lost the John Jones fight. Anderson Silva, he's got a lot of fans worldwide, more so than Cormier at this point, even though Cormier is the champion. I think, all things considered, yeah. Rather than, do you really want to watch 15 minutes just sit there, ground and pound in a lockdown, or do you want to maybe opportunity to see some of that Silva magic as, maybe out of reach as it would have been? So I think that's where it came from. Yeah. If I was there, I paid maybe a couple thousand just for nosebleeds that night. Okay, you know what?
It wasn't quite that much, but I get your point.
I get it, but definitely, it's MMA. Cormier fought the smart fight, so you can't knock him for taking the, smart road, especially when you think maybe he watched so many Anderson Silva highlights. It's like, you know what? I don't want to try that, even if it's just on 2 days' notice.
Yeah. It would be a very different fight if we booked this thing out, 2 months and everybody stayed healthy and stuff. That would be fun.
Really quick, technically speaking, because of a no contest, Anderson Silva hasn't won in
since
nearly
2012.
nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
Does all these losses hurt his legacy at all, especially last night? Did that hurt his legacy at all?
Last night, no, when you consider circumstances. Maybe the Nate Diaz one more, just because it should have been, and it's under his own power that he didn't get that victory due to the failing the drug test. So I think the fact that as it starts to go on, it's starting to get a little bit there. And I hate to say it because I'm the biggest Anderson Silva fan, but the time is starting to rack up against him, and the fact is he's still getting in that cage, and he's not getting that victory. Even the Michael Bisping one, close as it was, you argue it was in his hands just to be a little more active. So I think it does come down to Anderson. It is starting to maybe take a little bit of the blemish off that, put some blemish on that shine he's had for so long.
I'm gonna harken back to another fighter we just talked about, Andrei Arlovski. I wonder if we're going to see with Anderson Silva what Andrei Arlovski went through, where there was a point where he was losing matches, looked like his career was over, he was done physically, he was not performing in the cage like he should have. Now all of a sudden we're seeing a new Andrei Arlovski. It's like, holy shit, where did this come from? Yeah. Who's to say that wouldn't be the case with Anderson Silva, who has Wolverine-like healing powers and can do all kinds of stuff that just kind of daze and amaze in the cage, that defy logic. We may not see that, but that is potentially in the cards for Anderson. It depends on what he wants to do with the rest of his years.
No, definitely. And I think one big difference to maybe note is Arlovski, he was getting taken out by a lot of dudes for a while.
That too.
Anderson Silva, he's been...
Arlovski lost to Rumble Johnson.
Yeah, Anderson Silva's... Take out the Chris Weidman knockout, the leg injury.
He was competitive against Nick. He beat Nick short of
tactical error on the
positive test.
Yeah, the kick, Bisping, the fight was close.
Yeah.
So it's different circumstances than Arlovski, but I get what you mean. He could be ready for another renaissance and change the game again.
Yeah.
I guess we gotta wait and find out.
By the way, also too, completely on a side note and irrelevant, I want to give a shout out to Bruce Buffer for rocking 3 different tux suits. That was steez. That was beyond pimping.
Respect,
that was, that was couture. No, not couture. What's the word for fashion? We'll go with fashion. I'm thinking of
fashionable.
That was fashion presidential.
Chic, something like that.
Yes.
Cool.
That was the other thing that stuck out besides the ugly yellow mat, and I was like, man, that is some gangster shit.
That white suit was sharp. I'm not gonna lie.
Granted, it was for the interim championship, but would you ever thought that a championship fight would have been the second fight of a pay-per-view card?
Oh, hell no.
It's a good point.
Aldo looked great. I mean,
the old Jose Aldo is back.
Yeah.
Right?
The most notable thing, I think, obviously great counter punching. We always knew his shots were going to be harder than Frankie's if he landed. What shocked me, Frankie, as active as he was, he fought a great fight. Aldo was slipping his punches.
Yeah.
How the heck, when Frankie has such a large disadvantage in reach, are you still slipping those punches like he's Anderson Silva? So I was really amazed by that. I love that photo where McGregor's standing up and watching those guys through the cage. Great fight by Aldo. That's another one, though, that missing that pop of a star. That was one where it was apparent. Great fight by Aldo. Great fight by Frankie. Both performed. They had a great fight, plain and simple. But you were thinking, wouldn't it been nice if you had a matchup with like Aldo McGregor? I mean, we didn't know Aldo was going to come back like this, but it was another one of those. Why was the big story happening outside the cage tonight? That's the one thing.
I still don't think it's going to go back down to 145 anyways.
No, I agree.
For amount of time before they drop the interim thing. But I feel bad for Frankie Edgar. Like, here's a guy that is such a great fighter. It's just he's too small for lightweight. He might be too small for featherweight. And not. I mean, I say that because he beats all the guys, but when it comes to like beating the main guy, like he just looks so much smaller than him. He can barely even reach Jose Aldo.
I gotta say that's another one. Maybe just timing for Frankie Edgar. If it was, I mean, literally the only person he hasn't beat who's been in the cage with is Aldo.
If he can go back, if he can drop down to 135, he would destroy that division, including Dominic Cruz.
Seemed like there was talk about that.
I hope
Dominic Cruz, he said in the post-fight, like that's on the radar, but Dominic Cruz is also looking at unifying with the 145 down the line. It looks like he wants a super fight for himself.
So how did you guys score this one?
I had it for Aldo.
Yeah,
all the
all
way.
5.
All 5? Okay, so did I. I don't get it. Was it 49, 46, 49, 46, and then 48, 47? What rounds could Edgar have won? Explain to me this.
Maybe the first. I don't even know, but
I mean,
that
one of the
baffled
judges,
me.
one of the earlier rounds, maybe on activity, I guess you could say, because he was getting Aldo at the end of some jabs. Aldo was leaving his chin out.
That first
Aldo
round
was also landing.
That
as well.
first round was a little slow, so maybe they did it for Edgar since he was kind of just. You can just see he was a little bit more on the movement. I don't know, but again, I felt like I didn't even reach him. I'm just trying to see what the judges were thinking.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I just didn't see any time that Frankie was besting Aldo.
He wasn't.
So, like I said, obviously we see we can honestly say here, and we're just going to go off what they say at the thing, but obviously the next one is Alden McGregor, regardless of what happens with Nate Diaz, which it should be. Again, I just don't see him bulking up and then being able to drop down to 145 one more time.
I agree.
So don't know what's going to happen after that. I don't know who Aldo's going to... I mean,
So-
Max Holloway is literally right there.
Max Holloway should get it, and then Anthony Pettis.
If Anthony Pettis is... Yeah.
It sounds like he was going to drop down to 45.
No, he already
He
did. I
is.
think he's fighting Charles or Oliveira.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if he gets them being successful,
Yeah.
so we'll see how that goes.
That is a fascinating fight.
I'd get, you know what? Obviously, it's still McGregor's world. He did say at the press conference he intends to go back to 145.
Said the same thing last
He's
time.
pounding his chest. He's doing what you're supposed to do in promotion. You got to take into account. Let's say he doesn't come back for a while. If he's even remotely successful in the other divisions, he can come back and get a title shot whenever he wants against Aldo,
He wouldn't
Holloway.
need to, though.
It doesn't matter. The fact is he can. So the fact that he would vacate it doesn't mean that he's never coming back. It just means that the undisputed title would have been, it's going to move on without him. So I think take that into account. I think if he beats Diaz, he probably can make more money on a different fight. If he loses, obviously the smartest thing for him to do is come back and reassert his dominance at 145. So we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it, but I question whether,
I agree.
whether he'll even try.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Another heavyweight clash. Cain Velasquez against Travis Brown. This was another one which Cain is going to show up. We've been hearing a lot about Cain acknowledging that he gets hurt a lot in a lot of these build-ups. I mean, I can't even count how many fights he's had.
Good that he acknowledges it.
Yeah, I mean, he says
for us to tell him, "Hey, dude, you're out again."
He's had to switch up his training just because he knows that he gets. I mean, Fabrice Verdum was supposed to fight him against, a few months ago, and look how that ended up turning out. So it looks like he did something right because he, in my opinion, destroyed Travis Brown. I saw that Travis Brown was like on wobbly legs the same way he was against Arlovsky. Like I knew that once I saw like a little wobble, I was like, he's done. Cain can just toy with him.
And he didn't get back either. Like he didn't stay in the game.
Yeah.
Like at any other point.
So, I mean, I know you guys were alluding to a few months ago on one of our previous after shows, but Cain Velasquez showed up, and he showed that he belongs. And if you think about it, it was almost 6 years ago where he first won the UFC Heavyweight Championship. Wow. 6 years is a long time, but at the same time, he's probably fought like 6 times, so he is kind of relatively young in the fight game. He doesn't have that much experience because of all the injuries and all that. So he's still pretty much relevant.
I guess, only people close to Cain and he himself can say just how much mileage his body has in between fights that he's feeling. I can say, did you guys know Cain Velasquez could throw spinning wheel kicks? I mean, I was watching that with people and we were all like, I didn't know he could do that.
I will say this. It is pretty scary when, obviously, Cain Velasquez, standout wrestler from Arizona State. Oh, yeah. That's his forte. That's his, go-to. When you don't have to rely on that and you can beat people in other ways, that's pretty scary.
Oh, yeah. And so, he's obviously on the short list. We're going to see what happens with Stipe and Overeem. I think a lot of fans really wanted that Overeem-Velasquez fight. I know Jay is very big on fresh meat, fresh faces. Personally, I think the fans who take it is if it's a new fight. Him versus Stipe, him versus Overeem, that's all stuff we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
They're all looking great. I think why not make it? If they're still looking that vicious, let's lock them in the cage. But Cain, at the end of the night, he's back on the short list for the title.
I think Overeem wins anyways, and I think it's going to set up for Cain against Overeem at the end of the year.
That could be cool.
Okay. I hope, all I'm going to say is that I hope whatever AKA did differently these past couple of months, that they pick up on it, and hopefully it wasn't doing the same thing and just rolling the dice, because if Cain can stay healthy, he's going to be a major player in the division again. But beyond that, I don't know. I'm still kind of holding my breath here.
Still relatively young. He's only 33.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If this weekend doesn't teach these guys something, DC and Cain both dominating the way that they did on the biggest show, this is the golden goose. They were given they were given the golden goose in their lap, to mix my metaphors, and they should cherish it and run with it by training healthier and smarter and avoiding injury. That's that.
Yep. So that was the main card. Obviously, as I mentioned, the prelims and even the fight pass card was stacked from top to bottom. We did talk about Juliana Pena, who defeated Kat Zingano. Kat Zingano, her first time fighting in nearly a year and a half after that 14-second loss against Ronda Rousey. Zingano, do you think she showed up, or just Pena was better? Or I mean, I've been saying Pena's on the rise for the last however long she won the Ultimate Fighter.
I think ring rust was a little bit part of it. We saw Zingano really for a round and a half kind of have her way with Pena, being able to throw her around, very dominant, just threw her like it was nothing. So for Pena to come back and show off her ground game, credit. I think Zingano, maybe that time away affected her a bit.
Well, also since she last fight, yeah.
But matchups too. Pena, she's improving her game since the Ultimate Fighter, so I think it was a combination in that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good performance by Pena. I think she's probably hitting her stride right now.
I gotta say, we talked about it before. I would like to finally see Ultimate Fighter winner versus their coach, and I feel like
that's happened before.
When?
Tito Ortiz, Matt Hamill.
Okay,
yeah.
A winner.
Yeah, know your
Ultimate
smack.
Fighter
Know your
winner.
stuff.
Ultimate
Bam.
Fighter winner.
Okay.
Ultimate Fighter winner. If it was Bisping Ortiz,
That was going to be with the flyweights.
Okay, that's still no, because Demetrius wasn't coaching.
It was okay.
Yeah, it was going to be Benavidez and Cejudo.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of would want to see that finally, but just because that matchup I think makes sense in the rankings, but we got to see what's next. Either way, good fight for Pena.
Good fight. Good. Not a good fight for Johnny Hendricks, who I think has pretty much dropped it since he lost to Robbie Lawler. I mean, he did not look good at all in my opinion against Kelvin Gastelum. At any point, Gastelum probably could have finished him off. So I don't know what was causing. Obviously, we've seen Gastelum gas before, so maybe that's what it was. But I don't know because Hendricks did not show up on
weight.
On weight.
You know what shocked me
and
about
he'd be a small last minute away.
For the second time.
Yeah. You know what? When you look at them, you tell me that Johnny Hendricks was the one that missed weight when you watch that fight back? I mean, what do you guys want him to do? Get murdered at middleweight?
And Calvin has been in the same round after missing a couple of times. That Dana was going to make him go up to middleweight. Correct?
You would know this. So obviously, Gastelum getting 20% of Hendricks' purse. What happens if they both miss weight? Who gets that?
The UFC.
Well, that's partially true. Kind of. Maybe this is Pride rules or what they did with Pride, but. From what I remember, I think you take the penalty, the 20%, and you split it between the promoter and the other fighter. Okay. Now that's just tradition. I don't know that that's necessarily in CSAC or NSAC or ABC rules or anything, but that's how it's been reported in the past. I don't know if that all went to him. I would think that's how they reported it, right?
Yeah.
All 20% goes to Kelvin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if both guys miss out. You may not even have a match for that matter. But in this day and age, what's the likelihood of that happening? Yeah. Especially with the new weigh-in procedure seems to be making a huge difference. Guys being able to weigh in
Misha
earlier.
almost didn't make weight.
Yeah, I was going to say, what?
That.
Improbable, but not impossible. And we saw that on Friday. One missed weight. One champion almost didn't even make it to the weigh-in. So anything is possible, even with the new rules.
After losing their last fight, both TJ Dillashaw and Sage Northcutt both ended up winning. Actually, I had it for Marin. I don't know. I didn't really have it.
What?
I had Sage's fight. I didn't have him winning that fight. I don't know about you guys.
I think his good pressure in the first round.
I don't think he looked that good.
Okay, better than Marine. Put it that way. That's how I saw it. Third round, conditioning, just edged him. Obviously, he had to pull out that Houdini escape, to say it again, to get out of that armbar. Props to his toughness, but Marine obviously took the second round. I think it was just a matter of conditioning and speed that just made him look better against a slower Marine.
I can't speak to it. My DVR watched the Yankees and the Indians finished in overtime, extra innings there.
I mean,
so.
I thought Dillashaw looked good. Probably set it up for another fight against Dominic Cruz. Even the fight pass card, Diego Sanchez against Joe Lozon. I'm a big Joe Lozon fan, so I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Musasi, Jim Miller looked good. I mean, it was all...
Jim Miller and Takanori Gomi opens up the entire show. What?
Right.
Come on, man. Yeah, there was a hot, short little fight card pass with 3 first-round finishes.
Musasi, who volunteered himself and probably was close to fighting Cormier. Obviously, they ended up getting Anderson Silva, facing Thiago Sanchez, who's been on a roll, but obviously Musasi, I think, the much better fighter. Of course, Joe Lozon. Diego Sanchez was very happy overall, and you didn't really see much meanness out of him except for the walk. But
is he the dream or the nightmare?
He was
or
a dream yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was a dream.
Well, he got sent dreaming, sadly.
Jeez.
I could,
So we're about to wrap up soon. So 3 things I want to cover. It looks like late breaking news. It happened as soon as we started the show. It looks like the UFC has officially been sold. I know there was a lot of talk a few weeks ago.
Again?
But I think it's actually now like for sure confirmed. TMZ Sports reported. Not to say all hail TMZ.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
All hail TMZ, but. I mean, I like to think that they really care about, reporting the news, so we'll see how that goes. I'm sure that'll be a lot of talk of the town in the next few days. Middleweight championship, next fight is going to be for Bisping, is going to be Dan Henderson. I personally, I like it at the end of the day. Like I said, I've been saying it for a while. The storyline is there. You either have revenge versus... redemption or whatever you want to call it. Obviously Henderson has been craving a title shot and even the title since
you have
came
storylines, and that's something that you can market, and
it's very easy to market. I mean, Jacare, probably deserves the most, but
yeah, I'll give you that. Marketing. Okay, yeah, it's gonna sell. It's gonna do well for Manchester. I know Dana White wants to give Bisping that respect and have it in the UK. My thing is, let's say he knocks out Bisping again. I actually have Bisping winning the rematch, but for example, you really tell me Dan Henderson's going to hold on against Luke Rockhold, Jacare for a long time after the way he's been performing lately?
Number 13th ranked, Dan Henderson.
Yeah, okay, Dan, best of luck with staying atop that division if you do get past Bisping.
And now, will there be, if he were to win, is there what's the word? I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but what do you do if he retires? Is it like, do you have to? Is anybody going to get on him for retiring, or it's like, dude, you have to win? You have to defend the belt.
No, look at St. Pierre.
You have to defend the belt anytime. If you retire, you can retire at any point. That's what I mean to say.
Yeah. Alrighty, but before we wrap up, it is actually Jay Tan's last show.
Yeah.
Today. After I think we started around, I don't know the exact number, but
February.
I came in
2014.
It wasn't even a pay-per-view. It was Eric Silva against Matt Brown. And the guest was Bruce Buffer.
Okay.
Now I met you guys the event before that. It was UFC. Don't know the number. Jones versus Teixeira. The day that Don Fry was here. Everybody's Derry Baronato's favorite Don Fry
episode.
So yeah, that was my initial, and that was the first time I met you guys. I met you specifically. Then I met Derry Baronato, now former AfterBuzz host, now currently NXT superstar Derry Baronato. But it was a lot of good times.
It's kind of a bittersweet pill here to be leaving the studio. But 2.5 years, over 100 episodes, and three seasons of Tough. 2 of them with you. No, 1 with you.
Right?
Yeah. But life is moving on, and I will be moving on to other things in Seattle, outside of LA. So, henceforth, why I can't be continuing here. I'm looking forward to it, but there's going to be a lot of memories and stuff to look back on here. Of course, got 100 episodes of yours truly now. They're on iTunes and YouTube. A couple of things I would like to say beforehand. I've met there's been a lot of great people here in the studio. Of course, working with you for such a long time, Daria. We had a fun chemistry. We were always trying to give insightful discussion and engaging, and we'd banter back and forth.
And there were some awkward moments at times.
And that's the stuff that makes great conversation. I'm always going to cherish that, as well as the people that I know here and the relationships. To that end, first, of course, Kevin and Maria had a vision for this weird thing about talking about TV shows, and they invested in it, and now they've got a full staff and cadre of people who are really, a lot of them are young aspiring hosts and broadcast journalists. If you're in the LA area, or if you come here for that, it's a good place to learn to cut your teeth and get used to being in front of a camera. That's exactly why I did it. The staff here, many of these people that I'm going to talk about, you already see on their own after shows, and it's just worth acknowledging, though, that guys like Phil Svitek has a very impossible job handling as many heads as possible and trying to please all the people all the time. That's not an easy job to do. My AfterBuzz mom and dad have been Stephen Lemieux and Marissa Serafini, and mom number 2 has been Brianna Phillips. I think I got that right.
Sure.
Oh, well. If I haven't figured it out now, there's no hope for
She'll
me.
let you know later.
Phipps, thank you. Okay.
I thought it was Phillips too.
Yeah, there
For
you
some
go.
reason, we all saw an L somewhere in there.
To that end, by the way, though, as well, the engineers, sometimes you hear them pop in. You, of course, see them on the other, their after shows. I know I'm going to miss some names, but Mark, Steve, Alexis, John, Ray, Zach, and my man Sean Overman, who I don't know if he's around anymore, but he was always one that had our back and made us look good. We had some fantastic guests. To that end, shout out to Ryan Bevins of RFA for continuing to bring us guys like Alan Joban, Curtis Blades, Matthew Lopez. These guys are now all in the UFC. Terrion Ware, who's fighting next week. We had guys like Big John McCarthy, Art Davey, Herb Dean. Shout out to Herb Dean. Josh Barnett. All of this. But most importantly, I do want to personally say hi to Carol, Mike, and Diana. But the fans themselves, the guys in the chat room right now, Steven Studhill, Christian Alankara joined us at some point. Is a G thing. I don't know who you are, but what up? Eric Clark. Our familiar ones, of course, Dodgy Claire Bowie, whom I've never met, but we're now good friends. My man DJ Cast, Cody Brito would often join in. 1, 2, 3, and of course, our chief cornerman, Joe Boza, from the left of my chest, my friend. Thank you for supporting the show as much as you have. It really, truly has meant a lot to myself and probably the team here. So thank you for that. JTAN716 all over your internet. I will still be around, just not on camera here.
Yes, and you are more than welcome to call in at any time. If I had a heart, I'd probably be crying right now, but I don't. But yes, I do want to thank you for everything. You know, obviously, you've saved me a lot of money by me going to these shows and me not having to pay for them, whether it's RFA or U of MMA. So I want to thank you for that. Those are great shows that are, you know, U of MMA especially that you put on.
Damn right.
Every single time I've been, you know, begging you to see, hopefully at some point to see it on TV, because I definitely think it deserves for to be seen by a lot more people than you know, a few thousand people. But yes, I want to thank you for everything. You are awesome. You're amazing. I know we're gonna keep in touch for a very long time. Again,
like next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna text you tomorrow. But yes, like I said, call in at any time. If ever you want to say, hey, I want to call in, you know, ask me first, because you know I might not be up for it. But yeah, again, thank you for everything. And yes, we will be wrapping it up as they've been telling me to do for the last half an hour. But yes, real quick, I know you said JTAN716. Anywhere else where people can find you?
The U of MMA will be coming back November 13th. That's a Sunday. The Novo in downtown LA. Tickets will be available at uofmma.com. Flights probably starting around 4 or 5. I haven't even started booking. See you then. You are warned.
All right, hey guys. Well, first off, you know what? Respect to you and everything you've done. The house you guys have built here. I know you guys have been doing so many more shows, so respect that. You know, it's great to be here. Great to be here with George. I'm Gabriel Gonzalez. You can find me on Twitter. Talk everything MMA at Double G on TV.
And I'm George Hermoza. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, eBay store, G Hermoza, GHERMOZA. Again, we're going to continue the range. We're going to see if we can maybe get some other people to fill in. Maybe a couple chicks, you know, add a little sex appeal that that we're not going to have anymore now that JTAN716 is going to be gone.
Maybe I won't leave after all.
I don't know. They've been teasing some chicks going to join us, so we'll see. But yes, thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, all the above. Feel free to continue the chat room or YouTube comments, Twitter, ABTV/ or do we do that? # ABTV UFC? Sure, why not?
Sure, let's start up again.
We will be back very soon. We will hit you guys later.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.